I found this video of Kenjutsu versus HEMA sparring by Ghost of the Dojo, which is very interesting. I want to comment on it a little bit. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, and I'm going to keep it muted to give you an incentive to actually watch the video itself, not just my commentary. In fact, go do that now. Have you done it? By the way, All Saints Day is a great name for a martial arts event. First off, rapier and dagger versus Kenjutsu. Oh, one thing I feel like I should point out. I wish this went without saying and didn't need to be pointed out, but I feel like it does. When you see stuff like this, that is not evidence of how a fight of a samurai versus a knight would go in real life. Or in this case, rather, samurai versus musketeer. But of course, the longsword and katana are compared even more often. First off, current-day historical martial arts practitioners do not train like the knights and samurai of the day. They are not professional warriors, and they do not use the exact same techniques. In case of a living tradition, they change over time, and in case of rediscovering them based on manuscripts, they have to be interpreted, and not every interpretation is the same. Many of you may say, well, duh, that's obvious, but I've seen internet discourse. Trust me, it's necessary to point that out. So here, the Kenjutsu fighter wisely displaces the rapier blade immediately. As soon as that point is off-center, past him, he has nothing to worry about. He can just move in for a cut, which he does. Cut to the arm. The rapier fighter tries to get the rapier back on point. You can see that right after. You know, he just goes back with basically a false edge cut. In fact, it even lands really. It's a pretty weak false edge cut that wouldn't be enough to stop the opponent, but he tries, does what he can, but it doesn't work out. That's an interesting one. So the dagger, it's not quite used to control the opponent's weapon. There would have been an opportunity, but of course, it's easy enough to say when looking at it in slow motion in the middle of the fight. Things happen very fast. So ideally, the dagger would, be placed against the arm and control and push it off to the side. But either way, the rapier comes in for an undercut, which hits. It looks like the katana hits just a split second before. So the fighter on the left would be injured, but I don't think it would be debilitating. Would probably recover from it. And yeah, there's some... Interestingly, I wouldn't have counted that. The X there, I think that counts a rising cut to the arm. I feel like that's the main hit. You can see how it bounces off the leg, and then it just kind of draws upward, so like a drawing slice, which is not terribly effective. But either way, I do think that's a score for the Kenjutsu fighter. And here, that's great. That's just pretty much textbook, with the exception that it's pretty hard to parry a two-handed sword with a rapier with one hand. So you can see the attempt is made, the parry is made, but it just blows right through because it's two hands versus one. It can still be done, but it's difficult. But at the same time, the thrust lands. That's a very nice one. The Kenjutsu fighter tries to displace the rapier. I mean, it works generally, but the rapier fencer responds by raising the hand up, allowing the blade to go down, because you can't resist it anyway at that point, but you're just kind of saving it by scooping up with the hilt. And at that point, you're also creating a barrier. Like the blade here protects against the katana blade, so can't really threaten at that point. So I think there's a cut with the dagger as well. No, never mind. The dagger just kind of knocks down, like sort of. It's got a light strike to the arm, but it's also control. And then there's the rapier cut. In this case, yeah, a full powered rapier cut with full rotation to the head. That'll do it. Very nice. Undercut feint into a downward cut. I don't know the Kenjutsu terms, but I mean, undercut and downward cut is the general terms anyway. Yeah, so it goes to the head. The thrust lands before that. Actually, no, it doesn't go to the head. It goes to the arm, looks like. That's quite daring. So the rapier is forward, but it's just a little off-center. You know, it looks like it's pointing a little bit off to the right, so it's not threatening. So the opponent can just rush right in and close in with a cut, which is exactly what happened. Beautifully done. Here, same thing, really. And that's the problem. Like, people always give the rapier a lot of credit due to the reach, which is true. That does make it dangerous. But as soon as you're past that point, now it becomes pretty bad, actually. You know, look at how far the point is off. You know, like it's at the side. And in fact, the point even goes past the body, off to the side. And at that point, there's really no risk. Like, even if you try to come back with the rapier and slice across, not very effective, and just completely open. The only thing you can do at that point is try to catch it on the dagger. Light hit, I don't agree with that. I mean, sort of, yeah, but it looks like it wasn't the best edge alignment. And either way, a rapier cut with so little rotation to the body, no, it's not really going to do much. Like, it's not even going to penetrate sturdy clothing. So, yeah. The katana did very well here. I shouldn't say the katana. The Kenjutsu fighter did well. The katana doesn't do anything on its own. Very nice. So that's a smart decision right there. That's kind of a double feint, although this could just be, I don't know if the first one is supposed to be a feint or if it's just a matter of changing side, but then there's the feint. So it looks like a thrust, you know, feint, but then it's turned into a cut. And this also shows the problem with feints. They're highly effective in a lot of ways. The only problem is if the opponent decides to counterattack during your feint, you're screwed because your feint doesn't actually do anything. It's just a misdirection. So if the opponent decides, no, whatever they're doing, I'm just going to counterattack, which of course can be risky, but if you think you can displace whatever is happening and strike at the same time, it completely destroys the feint. And that's what happened. In fact, so the thrust to the arm hits, and then the sword stays out there and protects, which is exactly what saved the HEMA fighter here. Otherwise, that cut would have gone straight to the head. Very nice. Now, if I may nitpick, the buckler should be there to cover. You know, like, I want to see the buckler here to protect against the blade, but again, it's easy enough to nitpick slow-mo footage. Returning the favor, huh? So there is a feint on the other side. Yep. So, in fact, I really like how it's done, because it's like committed enough that it's not just, you know, a little hint and then immediately going forward. It's making contact. And then from there, once the buckler is in control of the sword arm, that's when that cut comes. And this is devastating. Like, you see how much rotation there is. It comes all the way from the top. Boom, that's powerful. That's going to break the structure. That's going to, you know, cut into the hip bone. That makes follow-up attacks pretty difficult. I don't think I would count this right here. That's such partial contact. It's basically just kind of placed on the head. So it will probably produce a bleeding scalp cut, which is annoying, but at that point it doesn't matter because the fight is over. Like, the opponent can't fight anymore. Now, I would maybe count the other one. Like, not the little tap on the head, that doesn't do anything, but I might count this, because you can see the the katana blade comes down and cuts the thigh. That happens after the cut to the hip. So the question is, can you still do that at that point? Probably not. I would expect the cut to the hip to just collapse the structure and make the Kenjutsu fighter go down, or at least, you know, lose balance and not be able to perform a successful attack there. Hard to say. Oh, okay, the hit was counted, just not where I would have counted it. I would have placed the hit marker here, you know, right there, because it hits the thigh and it goes up. Yeah, at that point, it's already lost the kinetic energy. Oh, nice. Okay, that's a tricky one. Does that still count? That's a good question. So this is defended, and then the messer comes under immediately and boom, hits in. Looks like it goes between the ribs. The katana, that's not really a cut. It's just kind of placed. You see, like, the momentum stops here pretty much. And then from there, it's pushed forward. Which, don't get me wrong, like, katana to the neck, slicing, that's still dangerous. But at that point, you've already taken the blade to the ribs. So can you complete that? Good question. But it's at the very least an afterblow in terms of points. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because, as I said, I want you to watch the video. It's neither my sparring nor my video, so I want to encourage you to watch their work. But just want to pick a few more exchanges that I want to comment on. And this, I absolutely have to comment on. Dual sickles, I know how hard that is, so I respect that. Going up against a two-handed sword with sickles is very difficult because, like, it's difficult enough against a single-handed sword because of the immense reach disadvantage, but against a two-handed sword, it's really hard to stop that because it can easily just blow right through if you don't do everything perfectly. So, very challenging. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, all the positioning with the sickle, I totally understand that because that's really what you have to do a lot. If your sickle is not in the right place, you're done. Like, there's so little margin for error because it's such a short weapon. With a sword, you have more to work with. Like, you can, I mean, there's an ideal area, you know, like from right above the guard to about the center of the blade. Here, you have much less to work with. So if it's just a little too high or a little too low, you have a problem. I see no hit marker there, but yeah, there is a cut to the wrist there. Sometimes you can't see the angle very well. Like this, it starts on the upper left, right? I mean, technically it switches to the upper right, but then it still goes back to the upper left. And so when it comes from there, you can't really see if it's a diagonal or a horizontal. In this case, it's a horizontal. And if you defend against a diagonal because that's what you expect and it is a horizontal, it's not going to happen. But the sickle fighter moves backward. That's what saves it here. And that's the interesting thing. That's kind of the paradox of sickle versus sword. On the one hand, you really need to get in there to use your super short weapons, but on the other hand, sometimes you have to move back. Sometimes you just get hit otherwise. Yeah, so that was actually caught on the sickle. Nice. And that's actually easy to miss. You know, it's such a small movement, right? But that's all you need. A sickle is brutal. Like, all you need is just a little wrist flick and you're gonna do a lot of damage. You couldn't resist, could you? I get it. I mean, you have two weapons, you can throw one. Did it actually work? Let's see here. No, it hits with the blunt side and the handle. What the sickle has going forward is the sheer speed. Right, but you can sacrifice power for speed, and that's what the Kenjutsu fighter is doing here. It's just a very tight feint, right? Wait, hang on. Here. It's basically just moving forward, just extending the blade, and then immediately retracting and coming forward again without going for a big, powerful swing, which is not necessary. Against a forearm, that's all you need. Just boom. You know, like almost like a kendo-like quick attack. Oh, yeah, that arm's gone. Oh, yep. All the way from below, rising cut to the wrist, that hand is gone. Nice. It's good defense against the thrust. First off, you notice the misdirection there? It comes up, indicates a high thrust, but then it turns into a low thrust. And I think it's another case where moving back was necessary. I'm not sure that defense would have worked without moving backward. Yeah, no, probably not. So, good call on that. Is that... okay, nice. That thrust could have landed, but was defended. And now moving in, boom. Sickle cut to the arm. Nice work. Good parry on that too. Oh yeah, especially since, look at this. This would not have worked, but there's like a last moment save where it's like, oh crap, it's coming from here, and just turning the hand like that. Although I think it's more the moving backward that's saving it here, because, you know, if the sickle fighter had stayed in place, that would have still cut the hand probably, but then moving back makes it so that it hits the flat side of the sickle. So, yeah, close call. Yeah, attempt to control the arms, and the sickle hits. The katana still lands, not with a lot of power, and then the other sickle hits too. Could you complete that at that point? Good question. It's not a very powerful cut. I'm going to say no, simply because doing enough damage to the upper body is pretty difficult. Like, we have plenty of natural armor there. Like, you need to be able to cut through the rib cage and then deep enough to get to internal organs. With a thrust, that's trivial. Easily goes right through the body. But a cut, even with a katana, requires quite a bit of rotation and force to cut deeply enough. Of course, it's still going to do superficial damage, or maybe not so superficial. It's probably going to cut down to the bone. So through muscles and everything, it's still an injury, a significant injury, but I'm not sure it would really stop the momentum there. So I feel like the sickle fighter would probably survive that in a real historical duel, as unlikely as it is. Yeah, that undercut, there's a lot more rotation in it. So that's a more powerful cut. And from there you can thrust as well. Yeah. So feint, that's just a quick feint just to get a reaction. And then, you know, sickle comes out, of course, because you don't want to take that. And then realization, oh crap, it's a feint. Still, the sickle fighter is still moving, like still adapting to it and trying to catch it, but it's just a smidge too late. So the undercut hits there. Ah, we have a fancy gentleman. Love that outfit and the mask. Interesting. So, it's more than a feint. It's basically like a tap on the buckler. I don't know if that was intentional or if the intention was to try to sneak past the buckler and strike. But, of course, the sword comes into action right away and hits the leg. So this would probably not complete, or at least not with enough power. Because the thing is, running into a sword cut like this, with decent amount of rotation, that there's a chance that leg might be gone, or at least like cut halfway or 2/3 into. So at that point you can't actually land on it anymore. Now, the cut lands before the foot lands, in all fairness, which gives it less power. But I feel like it would at least take some of the damage away from it. In a historical situation, that arm may or may not heal, but either way, the fighter would survive. Interesting. You can see there's a bit of a gap between the buckler and the sword hand, and I think that's what allows the Kenjutsu fighter to get right in between the gap. You can see that it's hitting the buckler and displacing it, and then forcing its way through. I think if the hands had stayed together, you would not have been able to get past the buckler. So that's an interesting case. Thrust feint into a cut. But here again, this is one of those issues where if the opponent just doesn't buy the feint or tries to interrupt, then that's a great way to interrupt. Just thrust. And this really only works because of the buckler. Because the buckler defends against the sword cut. Without that, you would have taken it, but this way, perfect. Those are some nice skillful exchanges, definitely enjoyable to watch, and I hope you enjoyed the commentary too. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.